Are men to stay sexually pure when there's so much temptation around. Boy, there is no lack of temptation, is there? You've got the pop-ups on your screen and all this stuff of scantily clad women, and they're trying to tell us that men are different from women. This is tough times for men to really navigate well. And so my encouragement is to, number one, realize that that's reality. It's like when my son first ran across a pornographic image. I didn't get mad at him. I just said, they're beautiful, aren't they? Women are beautiful. That's what Adam meant when he said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He said, God, you did good work here. The women are beautiful, and they are. Now, my challenge with my son was, do you want to go down a fantasy relationship road, or do you want to go down a reality relationship road? And so that's the basic understanding of what the temptation is all about. It's taking us down a fantasy road that isn't real, and it isn't worth chasing after. So, but the first point, of course, is to recognize your own vulnerability. I always call them vulnerability groups. They're not accountability groups until somebody is vulnerable. So I encourage you to find at least one battle buddy that is one friend that is you can be vulnerable with, and they understand your struggles, and they're able to ask you those questions. It might be as simple as every time you meet for a cup of coffee or a lunch is, are you clean? That's a fair question anytime with a battle buddy. Are you clean? And then let them know what areas, what temptations have been there, and take responsibility for those. The scripture says that we're actually absolutely supposed to take every thought captive to the obedience of Jesus the Christ. So the first thing is to recognize when that thought snaps in there, that lustful thought about an image or about a woman in your mind or whatever the case may be. You've got to capture that thought and make it obedient to Christ. Say, Lord, this is the devil throwing this image at me. I rebuke it in the powerful name of Jesus the Christ, and you flush it away from your system. You clean it from your screen. You do whatever you have to do to stay clean. But you accept the responsibility that you owe in marriage, or even if you're not married, you still have the responsibility to be pure for the woman you will marry, and stay committed to that sexual purity, so that you can enjoy the healthy relationship that you're called to in marriage. I'm not connecting a church as I feel the ministries are not geared toward me. So what can I do? I would encourage you to meet with the pastor and see what's happening. Hey, I'm not engaging here. Is it me, or is there something else I could do to fire some things up here for men? And if you get a blank stare, or then it's maybe a time to change a church. But I would say that you find what's going to click there for you. Again, it's like finding that group, that community. Find the ministry that you can engage in. Maybe you're a service-oriented guy. Maybe they build ramps for folks that need access in and out of a home. So you can get engaged in the service ministry of that church. If it doesn't have one and you're service oriented, then I would find a church that does have one, or find another ministry, maybe outside the church, that you can engage in. So the ministry doesn't have to be necessarily tied directly to your church. It may be an outside ministry, like Faithful Fathering. It's a parachurch ministry that if you have a heart, that's always my challenge to you. If you have a heart for fathers, then give us a call at Faithful Fathering. We'll line you up with some ministry that'll engage you with other dads and encourage you on your journey along the way. But I would just say, be very candid with your pastor. Don't be afraid to set up a meeting with your pastor and talk about it. Talk to other men in the church that may be of similar age as you are, and just say, hey, what can we do? Can we start up a volleyball night at the church, or can we start up a basketball night and just kind of have some fellowship? But make sure there's always a spiritual component to that time together. That's why we call it a ministry in the church. It may be a softball ministry, a baseball ministry, a volleyball ministry, or a ramp building, or a service ministry. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. But I would encourage you to get in sync with what you want to do in ministry, and talk with your pastor about what the church has. The church, every church struggles on what ministries to engage, because they can't do everything. So there may be a few they've decided, and your pastor can tell you why they've decided to go that way. And but they may be open to something else that you want to introduce. Or a good pastor will always say, "Hey, I know of this ministry that would be very, very complimentary to you," or even another church that would be complimentary to you. So that's where I would say is don't write off the church, don't write off the pastor until you have a chance to sit down face to face with the pastor and discuss what ministries you're interested in. So just be diligent and be purposeful, be intentional. That if your heart is for ministry, then that church is going to find a way to engage you, I guarantee you. My kids aren't listening to me. How do I make sure they receive the guidance they need to go in the right direction? I think that you look at the direction you're going. It might be the first start because they're going to catch what you have, Dad. And so you want to make sure what you have is worth catching. But the way to make sure they're listening to you is if they're young kids, you always talk to young kids right before they're going to bed because they never want to go to bed, so they'll listen to you. If you have a teenage boy, you don't feed him until he talks to you, and you make sure he listens to you. A couple of sarcastic sides there, but there are secrets you can have. I mean, taking a young man out for a hamburger, you'll have a time to talk with him, and you can just have a chance to converse. For my son and I, there's a lot of windshield time going to baseball tournaments. And the thing we have to realize as dads is that we don't get to control that quality of time when they're really going to listen or we're really going to engage in a conversation. What we have to do is provide that quantity of time. And so what we do there is create those opportunities. And I do encourage one-on-one opportunities. Take your son out for an ice cream, take your daughter out for a lunch or a breakfast morning. These are the things you can do to hang out a little bit and have those discussions. And as a result, if you start early, it's going to become natural. Now, I do warn dads with teenage daughters that McDonald's doesn't work anymore, and or Chick-fil-A. You have to take them out to a nicer restaurant, and that's okay because then you're teaching them how a man treats a young lady, and you're opening the door for her in a car. Then you're outruling 95% of the boys in high school, which is always a good criteria. But I would encourage a candid discussion and creating those opportunities, and they will listen to you. There's in fact, as they become teenagers, studies have shown that kids want to talk to mom and dad about sex and about relationships, but parents typically are either too busy, not engaged, or they're struggling with issues themselves. So as a dad, as you begin to be more intentional to have those discussions, then they'll see you as worth listening to when it comes to more serious topics. So just be intentional. Again, that's a good word for fathering. Be intentional in your efforts to have that one-on-one time to build a relationship that is one that they want to stay engaged in and that they will respect and listen to at key junctures of life. What's the best way to make sure my kids have a strong foundation in faith as they make their way to college? It starts early, but with that said, if you have not started early, that's not to suggest it's ever too late. It's never too late. The first thing is to pray. Pray for your child by name every day. Let them know what you're praying for them. In our study of Dad's Armor, I talk about the prayer guide that you pray over your child. And I started at a young age. When they were asleep, I'd pray it over them. Then I prayed it daily for them, even after they left for school or when they were about their day. I'd pray it daily for them, that they would get in sync with the unique giftedness that God has given them, that they would meet that right person that would learn to love and care for them as Christ loves and cares for the church, that they would be blessed with a happy and healthful marriage and family later in life with kids that come to know Christ just as they have. So these are prayers that we can pray specifically, and of course you customize them to your kids as they in their own unique giftedness and their own situations, but praying for your child by name every day. Well, I'll just share. That's why I'm here. As founder and president of Faithful Fathering, I'm here because my mother prayed for me every day of my life. And I did not even know that. She had no idea what valleys I was in my teen years, in my 20s and 30s, but she was praying for me every day. And so that's the single biggest thing we can do, is to make sure that we're praying. And then as they become of age or begin to understand it, you can let them know what you are praying for them. And that connects you spiritually. And then you're praying with them. What the prayers are. You can ask them what your prayer concerns are. And kids normally want to have a checklist, but you start to build up the fact that it is about a relationship with Christ, is what prayer is. It's a conversation with God. And so as they start to get in those teen years, then you're teaching them and helping them understand that it's important they have their own prayer life. So they're praying for their friends or their situations and their relationships themselves. And then when you ask them if do you have any prayer concerns that I can be praying for you, then you can have a dialogue, a spiritual dialogue about what is there that we need to lift up in prayer today. And so as your children begin to see how grounded you are in prayer, then they start to understand how important that relationship is. Now, you throw in there the fact that you're exemplifying. If you're leading by example, your kids should catch you reading scripture on occasion. They should catch you and mom praying together. They should catch the fact that you're leading the way to church. And that alone, a dad leading the way to church, 93% of the time the kids will stay in church, stay in the faith as an adult. So Dad, that's your, when our Heavenly Father shares the moniker Father with us, there's tremendous power in that. And that power can be to build up their faith or to lead them down another road. But that's on you, Dad. And that's not to suggest that you're a failure if your kids make a bad decision or a bad choice. That's not the call here, Dad. I'm just telling you that if you do what you're called to do, the likelihood that your children will stay in the faith through college is much stronger than if not. So just do what you can do, be who you are, and empower a relationship with God so that God can do what He does in your child's life.